Making headlines, India announces plan to increase the aid extended to the Maldives by 50% compared to the previous fiscal year. The newly appointed Minister of Tourism and Environment was to work towards ensuring that both the tourism and environment sectors of the Maldives are a source of national pride. And government announces that only guides with South Ari Marine Protected Area Guide certification will be permitted to take tourists to the location.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Idham Naeem. India announces plan to increase the aid extended to the Maldives by 50% compared to the previous fiscal year. The allocation has been included in the budget for India's new fiscal year, which begins in April.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government presented the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year to the country's legislature on February 1st. The proposed budget outlines foreign aid allocations as in previous years. According to the details of the budget estimates for the India's Ministry of External Affairs, Bhutan will continue to receive the largest share of foreign aid. The budget includes an allocation of approximately $68.7 million in rupee equivalent for the Maldives. In comparison, the current fiscal year saw an allocation of roughly $46 million. Therefore, the budget for the new fiscal year includes an increment of $23 million compared to the previous year. Although the current year's initial allocation was $46 million, this figure was later revised, bringing the total for the current fiscal year to $54 million. India remains a key developmental partner of the Maldives and has consistently provided substantial assistance. While several key infrastructural projects in the Maldives are being implemented with Indian assistance, this includes the construction of the Tilamala Bridge as well as the construction of 4,000 flats under the Gidarveria housing scheme.
The Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy and the Ministry of Tourism have been merged and renamed as the Ministry of Tourism and Environment under the authority of the President as granted by the Maldivian Constitution. This development was announced through an official directive issued by the President's office. According to a directive, key agencies previously under the Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, namely the Environmental Protection Agency, the Utility Regulatory Authority, the Maldives Meteorological Service and the Biosphere Reserve Office will now operate under the newly established Ministry of Tourism and Environment with immediate effect. With this change, the newly formed ministry has assumed responsibility for several key initiatives including climate change, mitigation efforts, environmental protection, energy, water, sanitation, waste management, tourism and biodiversity conservation. The ministry will continue its previous efforts while also integrating new responsibilities. With the new changes in effect, all correspondence directed to the Ministry of Tourism and Environment will now reference the number 88. The newly appointed Minister of Tourism and Environment, Tariq Ibrahim, vows to work towards ensuring both the tourism and environment sectors of the Maldives are a source of national pride. President Dr. Mohammad Moise merged the Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy with the Ministry of Tourism to create the Ministry of Tourism and Environment, appointing Tariq Ibrahim to lead the newly formed ministry. The merger followed the dismissal of the former Minister of Tourism, Ibrahim Faisal. Following his appointment, Minister Tariq expressed his commitment to bringing growth and improvement to both the tourism and environment sectors. He pledged to make the Maldives a flourishing tourism sector, a sector of which Maldivian citizens are proud and also one that brings even greater benefit to the country. Minister Tariq said that the combination of these two sectors will allow the achievement of important goals. The Ministry of Tourism and Environment announces that only guides with Sampa Guide certification will be permitted to take tourists to the South Ari Marine Protected Area, Sampa.
Sampa is a plankton-rich area due to its reefs and currents. Due to this, the area attracts the endangered whale shark, which frequents the area for feeding and to regulate its body temperature. As whale sharks are present in the area year-round, a large number of tourists from across the world flock to the area year-round to witness these creatures. However, in recent history, several unfortunate incidents have occurred during diving and snorkeling activities in the area. According to the ministry, approximately 70% of whale sharks in the area have been injured by vessel propellers. The management plan formulated by the ministry sets out the rules to be followed by those responsible for guiding tourists to the Sampa, including Sampa guides, captains and crew members of vessels. The plan outlines that only guides who hold Sampa Guide certifications can take tourists to the area, with the requirement taking effect 3 months after the gazetting of the management plan. According to the ministry, the management plan was developed based on extensive discussions held since July 2024. Over the course of 8 meetings, over 300 stakeholders and experts were consulted. The decisions regarding the plan were taken on the recommendation of an advisory committee comprised of relevant stakeholders.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abdullah Khalil, concludes his official visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The visit, undertaken on the invitation of Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, underscored the deep fraternal ties between the Maldives and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, reaffirming the strong, long-standing partnership between the two nations. On his visit, Minister Dr. Khalil held productive discussions with his counterpart centered on further enhancing the long-standing ties of friendship and cooperation between the two countries, as well as future areas of collaboration. During the meetings, Minister Dr. Khalil provided a comprehensive briefing on the economic priorities and efforts to diversify Maldives' economy, ensuring stability and growth in key sectors such as tourism, infrastructure, and renewable energy. During the visit, the minister also interacted with the resident Maldivian community in Riyadh and students in Medina and inquired about their well-being. In addition, Foreign Minister visited the Embassy of Maldives in Riyadh and Consulate of Maldives in Jeddah and emphasized on the close cooperation between both missions in supporting Maldivians residing and traveling to Saudi Arabia, especially for Hajj and Umrah, while also working to enhance diplomatic and economic relations between the two countries. Minister of Economic Development and Trade Mohammed Saeed announces that the government will initiate the legal framework required to protect and ensure the growth of small businesses in the country this year. The minister made these remarks at the launch of the Divehinge Ufeddun Terikamge Mauras Maldives Expo 2025. Speaking during the ceremony, Minister Saeed said the exhibition will showcase the innovations of international businesses and investors as well as developed countries in order to facilitate and inspire the development of new ideas by local manufacturers. The minister said this year will be a year of opportunity for small businesses, adding that the government will initiate efforts to offer legal protection for local products and inventions. Organized by the Business Center Corporation (BCC) under the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade, this nationwide expo will promote artists, businesses, and innovators in the Maldives and provide a common platform for collaborations and partnerships to enhance their skills, ideas, and inventions. All entities within the criminal justice system agrees that individuals currently in custody pending trial must remain in custody. There are currently 435 individuals in custody pending trial.
Speaking at the opening ceremony of the Bandhu Forum organized by the Prosecutor General's Office to address issues related to detention, Prosecutor General Abbas Sharif acknowledged the concerns surrounding pre-trial detention. However, he stated that such measures cannot be entirely halted for the safety and security of society. He also noted that more individuals are being held without trial than the capacity of prisoners. The forum included a panel discussion with the participation of heads of all institutions involved in the criminal justice system, with the exception of judicial courts. Officials who spoke at the panel discussion agreed that while there are issues that need to be addressed in the pre-trial detention process, the current detainees are in custody for compelling reasons. The forum aimed to identify issues faced by individual agencies regarding pre-trial detention, what can be done to address them using existing resources, and developing a systematic and long-term solution to these issues. Discussions also included a broad range of measures that can be taken to facilitate expedited trials, the possibilities of monitored release instead of detention pending trial, and the extent to which agencies are prepared to implement such measures.
US President Donald Trump orders a 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports and 10% on goods from China starting on February 4th.
US President Donald Trump on February 5th ordered 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports and 10% on goods from China starting on February 4th, and declared that they would remain in place until a national emergency over the drug fentanyl and illegal immigration to the US ends. Officials told reporters that energy products from Canada will have only a 10% duty, but Mexican energy imports will be charged the full 25%. A White House fact sheet on the duties said they would remain in place until the crisis is elevated, but it did not provide details on what actions the three countries would need to take to win a reprieve. The moves follow through on a repeated threat Trump has made since shortly after winning last year's presidential election, and they likely will trigger retaliation and risk igniting a trade war that could cause broad economic disruption for all countries involved. According to Trump's written order, tariff collections are set to begin at 12:01 a.m. or 5:01 GMT on Tuesday. However, imports that were loaded onto a vessel on their final mode of transit before entering the US before 12:01 a.m. Saturday would be exempt from the duties. Trump has declared the national emergency under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and the National Emergencies Act to back the tariffs, which allows the president sweeping powers to address crises. The White House officials said there would be no exclusions from the tariffs. Moreover, in the case of Canada specifically, they said the de minimis US tariff exemption for small shipments under $800 would be cancelled. Trump, who golfed at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida on Saturday before signing the order, was not scheduled to speak to reporters about the tariffs. Trump set the February 1st deadline to press for strong action to halt the flow of opiate fentanyl and precursor chemicals into the US from China via Mexico and Canada, as well as to stop illegal immigrants crossing US borders. Less than 2 weeks into his second term, Trump is upending the norms of how the United States is governed and interacts with its neighbors and the wider world. On January 31st, he pledged to proceed with the levies despite acknowledging they could cause disruption and hardship for American households.
Australian authorities confirms that one person had died and urged thousands of people in North Queensland state to move to higher ground due to flooding caused by torrential rains.
Australia's weather forecaster said on its website that the flooding in Australia was triggered by heavy rain from a low pressure system rich in tropical moisture, adding that 24-hour rainfall totals were likely up to 300 millimeters. Police confirmed that a member of the public had died after a state emergency service vessel capsized.
Sadly, we are aware that this morning an SES boat responding to assist members of the public in Ingham capsized at around 9:20. There were 6 people on board the vessel. 5 people were recovered safely, but sadly 1 person was deceased. We understand the deceased member is not a member of the SES, but is a member of the public.
5 people were rescued from the vessel.
I want to start with residents living in what's known as the Black Zone in the Townsville area. That's those lower lying suburbs that have been identified and door-knocked in recent days, and that is to evacuate by midday. Now, residents were asked to prepare yesterday and we had mobilised people on the ground, but we're now asking those residents to leave by midday for their safety.
Frequent flooding has hit Australia's east in recent years, including once-in-a-century floods that inundated neighbouring Northern Territory in January 2023 during a multi-year La Nina weather event.
US top diplomat Marco Rubio arrives in Panama on his first foreign trip with a scheduled visit to the canal and a meeting with the Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino, the first talks between the countries since President Donald Trump's threat to take control of the canal.
It's very unusual when you hear a deep sea.
Trump vowed to take back the world's second largest interoceanic waterway during his January 20th inauguration speech, falsely claiming that China is operating it. He has complained about the canal's tolls as well as the presence of Chinese and Hong Kong-based firms in Panama. Panama has vehemently denied ceding operation of the canal to China. The 51-mile waterway's construction was completed by the US in 1914, and since its return to the Central American nation in 1999, it has been controlled by the Panama Canal Authority, an autonomous agency overseen by the Panamanian government. Mulino says he won't discuss control of the canal with Rubio. Rubio will also visit El Salvador, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic, where the Trump administration's efforts to repatriate migrants from the region and stem migration into the US will be on the agenda.
A streamlined Mercedes raced by Formula One greats Stirling Moss and Juan Manuel Fangio in 1955 set a record for a Grand Prix car, selling at auction for €51.155 million or $53.01 million.
42.
Sleek silver W196R Strom Linian wagon, one of only 4 complete examples in existence, was sold by RM Sotheby's at the Mercedes Museum in Stuttgart, Germany, on behalf of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway IMS. The car had a price estimate of more than €50 million, and while the bidding rapidly reached €40 million in €5 million increments, it eased off before a final hammer figure of €46.5 million.
I think it's a wonderful price. It's a huge amount of money for anybody. It's over €50 million, and it's I think a fair price. And it has incredible history, and it's not often that motor cars make numbers like this.
The final price includes the buyer's premium. The buyer was not immediately named. The IMS car is the first W196R to become available for private ownership with a streamlined body fitted. The car was driven to victory by 5-time world champion Fangio at the non-championship Buenos Aires Grand Prix in 1955, but with a more conventional cigar-shaped body on the same chassis and fully open wheels.
I do think in our lifetime none such car will be auctioned off. If I would be the owner, I wouldn't it auction off because it has a race history. It was driven by the most important drivers, I would say, ever. Lewis, notwithstanding his glory, and it is the most beautiful race car ever built, and never ever will any formula allow you to build such a nice, wonderful, beautiful racing car. So that makes it extremely special.
That Grand Prix marked the end of an era for the Mercedes stable's silver eras as the firm withdrew from factory-sponsored motorsports in 1955 after a Le Mans 24 hours disaster that killed 84 people.
Such a car is not just a car. It's not like our daily commute vehicle. It is a piece of culture, of testimonial for civilization. So it not just needs an owner, it needs a custodian. So whoever will be the lucky one with the successful bid has to come with the responsibility to take care of the car in the most, let's say, comprehensive way.
Mercedes returned to Formula One as an engine provider in 1994 and with its own works team from 2010.
The price of cabbage makes headlines in Japan this month after climbing to 1,000 yen or $6.43 in Tokyo, roughly equivalent to an hourly wage.
The staple crop cabbage is just one of the everyday items pushing the cost of living up in a country where prices and wages have remained stagnant for decades. Kazuki Nakata, a 37-year-old home gardener, began growing vegetables at home in Kawasaki near Tokyo during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, it was just a hobby, but as inflation has taken hold in Japan, his family has noticed the financial benefits of growing their own food. Since they started producing vegetables, they've been eating at home more. The family tends to pick vegetables and eat them quickly before they go bad or base meals around what they have growing. As the cost of living rises, the cost of their food has decreased significantly. In 2023, Nakata quit his job at an electronics retailer to focus on growing the 47 types of vegetables he now cultivates all over his house. From lettuce, onions, and daikon radishes to plants growing in empty plastic bottles, drink cans, and even his bicycle basket, he's found innovative ways to make use of a limited space. With vegetable prices soaring, Nakata feels that effort is paying off. His YouTube channel, where he shares tips and techniques for growing vegetables at home, gained around 4,500 new subscribers in just the second half of January alone. Whenever Nakata uploads a video, he receives a lot of positive comments, with viewers saying things like wow or expressing their desire to grow growing vegetables themselves. Some commentators note how important it is to learn this skill now that vegetables are so expensive, indicating a growing awareness of the issue. While agricultural products become more costly, the Nakata family is eating more fresh vegetables than ever. They believe vegetables grown from seeds at home taste far better than store-bought ones. Nakata feels that these vegetables, grown with love, are different and much more flavorful, a sentiment his family shares when they sit down to enjoy a plate of freshly harvested spring onions.
That concludes news for now. Thank you for watching PSM News. Have a good day.